Motion by Jeff, second by Rich, to approve the minutes as submitted. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. January 30th, 2020, budget work session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Kay, to approve the minutes from the budget work session. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. 3.3, February 4th, 2020, budget work session.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Kay, second by Rich to approve. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Unanimous motion. 4.0, public hearing, none. 5.0, proclamations, none. 6.0, old business, none. 7.0, new business. 7.1, presentation on insurance policies and loss prevention efforts by Jackie Schneider, Schneider Insurance, Schneider Weirs Insurance.
Hello, I didn't get to say hi to Jeff.
I don't.
Jeff. How are you, Jeff?
Good.
Good. Okay. Well, I'd like to pass out some items for you. This is in regards to a dividend check that I'm delivering to the city on behalf of EMC. The city has an insurance program with EMC that's part of a safety group through the IAMU that is bundled with a number of other cities in the state of Iowa. And all of the cities pay their premiums. It goes into a big bucket. And then costs are removed out of that and shared among all the cities in the state of Iowa. Claims are reserved off of that and paid from that. Any excess premiums that have been paid by all the cities are then calculated, and anything that's left over will be delivered in a dividend. What they do is they take a 3-year average performance of all the cities in the state of Iowa, and then that calculation is delivered. So I'll go through that with you to kind of help you understand what was delivered this time. So first, congratulations to the city of Anamosa for being part of a dividend check today. So I get to bring you a check for $32,684. That's your portion of a $4 million dividend check that's being delivered to all the cities across the state. This is a unique feature of the program, and it allows members to be rewarded for good performance in the program. In order to maintain a dividend of these levels, they are asking for all the cities to work hard on their loss prevention, and we'll walk through where that's creating a problem at. Because this is the 3rd largest check that's ever been delivered, and they have never, well, there's only been twice in its history where it has not delivered a dividend check, and it's been because of claims. So we'll walk through in the letter here why that's so important. So if you look at page 2 of your packet, that is the package portion of the policy. And you'll see that a total amount of premiums that were paid in 2018 to 19 period was $15 million to the program. They then subtract a retention piece, which accumulates costs and reserves. So they take in all that money and they say, hey, we anticipate this much is going to come through in claims. They subtract losses then and expenses, and they come up with what's an anticipated dividend. And then they divide that by 3 to come up with an average. If you look at these 3-year averages, 3 years ago it was a $2 million estimate, and then the year after that it was $1 million, and this year it's only $500,000. That was the Marshalltown tornado. Okay, so it really took a hit with that tornado, but the good news is if you call Marshalltown, EMC was there the next day. They were assessing claims, they were bringing in generators, things were moving. So you're with a carrier in this program that really responds quickly, especially when a catastrophic event happens, and they got the city up and going as fast as possible. They were very pleased with it. The next page is the work comp portion. And last year, it was in the negative. The year before, it was in the negative. And the year before that, it was in the positive. So as you calculate the 3-year average from a work comp perspective with the cities, we're really on a downturn here because the program is losing funds on the work comp piece of it, which is going to impact the ability to earn a dividend in the future with the program. So I just want to share with you where Anamosa stands on the work comp piece. So from 2015 to 2019, the city of Anamosa submitted 36 claims and incurred losses of $666,852. Of that $666,000 in claims, you only paid a premium of $608, which means that your loss ratio as a whole in work comp is 112%, or 112.3. So the program is losing money by providing the coverage to the city of Anamosa. So what Jacob and I have been talking about over the last year and a half is how do we help create a culture to where we're a little bit more proactive from a loss prevention standpoint. We went out in September and had a meeting with all of the supervisors in each one of the areas and discussed what concerns are out there, these concerns with the number of claims. It's more of a frequency and a volume piece. So we visited with them about that, talked about the evolution of workplace safety, tools and resources that are available, what's a future claim process. Dan Smith has daily toolbox conversations about safety every day before the workers go out. So how can you create that kind of a culture where you put safety right on people's minds before they go out and do their jobs for the day? There was a conversation about setting up an SDS binder works online access so any worker can go out and access that. So Jacob and I have been in conversations about moving that forward. And that's all free of service to you through your IAMU membership, these free safety programs and resources that are available to you. So understanding that the claim issue is first step is awareness. We've already started to be proactive in correcting that work comp culture. Since September when we had that meeting, we've had 0 claims turned in on the work comp piece. So in the past, employees were just calling directly into the carrier and turning in the claim themselves. So that's good news in the fact that either we're not having claims or at least they're talking to their supervisor in advance. We also initiated an on-call nurse program to where if there is a minor cut or something like that, the supervisor's informed right away. They call the on-call nurse. She'll direct them on what kind of care is necessary at that point instead of going just directly to the emergency room, which creates a claim that doesn't necessarily need to be one. So I think the next steps are moving in the right direction and creating a better culture from a claims standpoint. And that's the one thing you can control is what the city is doing from that standpoint. Any questions on the program or anything like that?
Do you have any information on where the claims are coming from mostly in our city?
Yes. We're currently waiting for some shoulder claim to be settled. I believe the reserves that are out there now is $528,891, and that's a shoulder injury, I believe, from a fall that occurred, a slip and fall. That seems to be the biggest issue is slip and fall claims. But there was a shoulder injury, I believe, that's still out there with a big volume of money on it yet.
Okay.
So Jack, sounds like we've started to implement an early phase of preventative measures.
Yeah.
Is there, a second or a more advanced phase that can be looked at for picking and choosing what will best fit, Anamosa, the personality, the community, I should say?
Absolutely. So EMC and the IAMU partner really close together on those safety features. So they've come already and inspected every facility. They've done a big survey. Now we've done the workplace education, and the next step is initiating the safety program to make it electronic and accessible to everyone. And then going out to each supervisor's team meetings and to begin to move forward with that. So that's all free of cost to you. We just need to begin that initiation moving forward, and we'll work with Jacob on getting that done.
One thing we're looking at, and it's not concrete, but the partnership with IAMU, they're looking at kind of changing or providing an alternative structure to how they work with the city, where they'd be more involved, and basically partner cities could share a safety coordinator, so that we'd have somebody here regularly to lead our safety meetings and do regular training. That's something that we're looking at as a possibility to improve.
Are the injuries sort of even across departments, or is it one department primarily more than others? Or do you break it down that way?
I didn't have it broken down for today. I can provide that for you. There is a big safety report that we did. Do you remember, Jacob, what department was more prominent? I want to say it was water.
From what I recall, it was water and wastewater, but I mean,
Wastewater.
your big three, I mean, just from the nature of the work, are the water, wastewater, and streets. They're just in more hazardous environments, but I don't remember exactly which one.
So generally speaking, that one stood out.
Not that I recall, but again, I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
Historically, up until this point, fire department
Fire department is also
was a
one.
big one.
Yeah.
We had people falling through roofs and slipping and falling, running to a fire truck.
Yep.
You know, you have a rotator cuff problem or a hip or something, it's expensive. You're in the $500,000s then, and that's really what we're dealing with right now. The hard thing about fire department is they're volunteers, so getting to a meeting with them or having all of them present, like we did this safety with all of the supervisors, and fire wasn't there, and the Burndy Center wasn't there.
They do
Or
have training.
LCC wasn't there.
Yeah,
Yes,
they
they
do.
do have training.
So we could probably work something like that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fire and police are usually your biggest issue, just with the line of work that they do. They have very quick responding motions that they take. So whatever you can do from a city to create a culture of safety, it not only helps prevent your claims, but it'll help morale. When you have a city that wants you to be safe in what you do, that can help just all the way around. And however we can help serve you in that, we're here to help you initiate meetings and, you know, buy lunch. That usually gets people there. But we're being proactive. The city is paying way too much for work comp, right? You're being penalized in the premium side because of the claim performance. So we need to get that working back the other way to create more funds in the general fund so you can do better work with it. So that's my mission, is to help you proactively have more money in your slush fund. It's not being paid towards insurance. That's not necessary. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
32 what?
3260.
684.
Does the public have any comments to add to the discussion? Council has no more. We'll move on to the next. Thanks again, Jackie.
Yeah, you're welcome.
7.2, presentation of the independent auditor's report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019 by Adam Pulley and Andrew Mullen. Clifton Larson Allen. Discussion of possible action to approve the report and follow the presentation.
Well,
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, everybody. My name is Adam Pulley with Clifton Larson Allen, the principal in charge of the audit from this past June 30, 2019. Andrew Moen is the fieldwork in charge from the audit. It looks like in front of you, everybody has a copy of the financial statements maybe, or hopefully seen those, as well as the letter to governance. There's obviously a number of pages in both. I'm going to do my best to keep it pretty high level for your benefit. This is my first time that I've been out to do a presentation for you. This is my second year being involved in the audit. So to be honest, I will do what I feel is probably worthwhile, given that we're in February, we're talking about financial figures from June. I don't know that we have to spend a whole lot of time on the financial piece. So what I would like to do actually, it might be worthwhile as far as a refresher to some, or maybe just informative to others, is if we have the financial statements here, I would ask that you first turn to page 4. A few things that I want to point out. First and foremost, these financial statements are those of the city. We do help the city prepare these financial statements in accordance with accounting standards, but ultimately these are the financial statements of the city. So page 4, these few pages is really the only piece of this entire book package that is ours, that we produce. It is our audit opinion over the financial statements. The second paragraph there talks about the management's responsibility for the financial statements. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but essentially management is responsible for the numbers within the financials, also responsible for the internal controls regarding accounting transactions. Below that's the auditor's responsibility. So our responsibility as the external auditor is to express an opinion on whether these financial statements are clean from a material misstatement standpoint, that the financials, the numbers you're looking at, you can feel comfortable with. There's no big errors, things of that nature. So that's our responsibility. On the next page, at the very top, is our actual opinion over the financials. And we did give a clean or an unmodified opinion on the financials. This is the best opinion that we can give. Again, this is looking at materiality, so it is always possible that there are small errors that could be within the financial statements, but we do not look at every single transaction. We couldn't possibly do that. The whole concept of materiality is that we believe there is nothing that would impact users of the financial statements' decision making, essentially. That's what that's saying. So very briefly, if we could then turn to page 10, just for reference, if you ever did want to go back and look at the performance of FY19 as well as the cash balances as of FY19. Page 10 is the governmental funds. So that first column is the general fund. And you could see the receipts that came in during the year, the expenses, and the next page would show the residual cash balance as of the end of June. The other columns there are other major funds of the city, as well as all the other governmental funds wrapped up. Now, on page 12, the city does have 2 funds which are not considered governmental. These are the proprietary funds, so that's your water and sewer funds. This is where you would find that information, is on page 12. Once again, it shows the receipts at the top, operating disbursements, and eventually it gets down to the cash balances at the end of the year. So I will point out here, the water fund being that first column. After you have your operating receipts at the very top, subtract out the next section of operating disbursements, you do get to that change of basically operating performance. So the water fund, you might see there's a negative $1,500 as far as FY19. I point that out because that'll come into play at a later comment. The sewer fund, as you could see, actually had an operating profit of nearly $660,000 for the year. Again, briefly, I will go ahead and go to page 17 now. There are a slew of pages here that are footnotes that just help describe some of the balances that we've been looking at and give a little bit of support. On page 17, I just want to point out that note 3 is where you would find the outstanding debt information as of June 30, 2019. The different debt instruments the city has, as well as the payment schedules over the next few years. In case you ever wanted to see that as a reference, that's a spot you could find it. I'm going to skip over all the rest of the notes here, and I'm going to go ahead and go to page 39, towards the very back of this document. We do perform an audit, so we do have a spot where we report any audit findings that we come across. During FY19, there were 3 findings, each of which actually are all repeats from previous years. The first one there on page 39, I mentioned earlier, we assist the city in putting together the financial statements, but we as the external auditors cannot be considered part of the city's internal control structure. So by virtue of that, this essentially has to be a finding, us assisting the city to put these statements in accordance with proper accounting standards. I will tell you that this is I deal with, or I work with, I should say, governmental entities year-round. This is a very common finding, and especially for a municipality of your size. I see this almost all the time. The next page shows the second and the third findings. I'll touch on the third finding first, which starts towards the middle of the page. Similarly to the first one, segregation of duties. This is a very common finding, once again, for a municipality of your size. Essentially, accounting standards have rolled out that in an ideal internal control environment, you would have a second set of eyes essentially on everything that you do, whether it's collecting receipts, paying payroll, whatever else, on everything. A lot of that was designed for larger entities as well as corporations. As a small municipality, and as well as I see at other municipalities, having that ideal segregation of duties is really not all that feasible. So again, but as a result of that, we do have to note that as a finding. So that's a repeat item, and probably I would guess would be for the foreseeable future, honestly. Within this finding, there was also an additional note that didn't show up in prior years. With the city's turnover that occurred during the fiscal year, there was some journal entries that were made that we could not find supporting documentation, so essentially there were certain transactions that we weren't able to audit, if you will. Now, at the end of the day, we were able to audit all the city's cash balances, so we did not have a concern enough that we couldn't give a clean audit opinion on the financials. But nevertheless, we came across that, so we noted that within the finding. The last one I want to touch on was at the top. Excuse me. Finding number 2. Again, this is a repeat from prior years. Violation of debt covenants. Now, there is, with the city's bond instruments, or the debt instruments, I should say, there are various covenants, one of which is that the city should maintain that the net receipts from operating should be at 110% level of the future principal and interest due. So if you recall, I pointed out in the water fund that negative $1,500 thereabouts, because that amount was negative during the fiscal year. That's not 110% of the future debt service, so we do have to note that as a finding. Realistically, I know this was a finding in the prior year, and I believe in years before, the city has been making debt payments. There's no I'm not aware of any concern that this would be a problem going forward, so I don't know that there's going to be anything that comes of this finding. Once again, because it's within the debt documents, and it appears that it was not met, we do have to note that. So those are the findings that we came across. We did not come across anything new that required an additional finding. I was going to touch base on the letter to governance. I could stop real quick if there's any questions on any of the financial statement stuff I just went over.
Well, I do have a question, in your findings. Do you take a look at our policies to
Yes.
see if we're following our policy?
We take policies into consideration, and usually those are definitely more in line with certain state of Iowa compliance requirements.
Well, I'm specifically referring to our handwritten checks. We have a policy for that. Did you look into that?
we take policies into consideration when we are performing the audit. We did not come across a concern with the existing policy.
Well, because our policy states that there should be no handwritten checks over $7,000. Yet we had a handwritten check for, what was that, 300,000 last March, April? That went against that policy, and evidently you didn't make note of that.
No, that is not something that we came across during the audit. When we perform the audit, we deal in a world of materiality, as I alluded to, as well as sampling. We cannot possibly look at every single transaction that the city has.
But handwritten checks are pretty minute, so a $300,000 check should have stood out to you.
It would have stood out in the sense that if there is not an internal control concern for audit purposes, whether it's handwritten or not necessarily. So
Well-
I agree with you. Obviously, we did not make the connection. We did not review all the policies to make sure that all the transactions are in accordance with policies. That is honestly not a focus of the audit. But I understand the question.
Okay.
Any other questions before we move on briefly to the letter to governance, which is a stapled document, and really I didn't have much to say here. I don't know, it's probably 7 or 8 pages. Honestly, for the most part, this is fairly boilerplate language. This would be our opportunity to express to the council if we had any issues during the audit, whether it was significant delays or working with management, disagreements with management. We did not have any of those, so there was nothing to report. Towards the back, there are a couple pages that did show if we had suggested audit adjustments or reclassification adjustments. I don't know, it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So a handful of those, we just have those attached for the benefit of the council. But otherwise, there was nothing of significance to report within this letter. That is really what I had to touch on. Again, I was trying to keep it relatively high level. I don't know if that was too much or too little, but be happy to answer any more questions at this time, or frankly, if questions come up at a later date, the city is certainly welcome to get back in touch with myself or with Andrew at any time. There are no questions. I definitely want to thank Jacob as well as Beth this year. I think it's probably a little bit more of a trying year than maybe other years have been. So we appreciate very much your guys' patience with us. Obviously, an audit is inherently intrusive, so we know you guys have day jobs, and we do appreciate you working with us.
No questions on my side.
Well, thanks for reviewing and conducting the audit. Council have any additional questions? I'll ask for any public opinion. Well, that should conclude.
All right. Well, thank you very much once again for inviting me. With your permission, I'll probably start heading back over to Illinois and put my wife out with the little one we got
All
out.
right. Well, safe trip.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank you,
much.
guys.
Have a good evening.
I guess I did have, not pertaining specifically to this, but in here, it mentions a development agreement that the city has, and it mentions Anamosa Lodge and Suites, it mentions Fairway, and it mentions Anamosa Care Center. I mean, I get the Fairway and the Lodge and Suites because it's fairly recent. Are we still under a development agreement with the Care Center? I mean, as long as that facility? No.
It's finished.
What?
It's finished.
Okay, that's what
Yeah.
just passed.
Anamosa Inns and Suites is finished this year was the last year.
It concluded within the audit period, or concluded.
It'll be within the 2020 audit,
Yeah.
will be the final.
And how long's Fairway?
Oh, goodness, Fairway's just recent, so they're probably,
I don't remember the
It's like a
building.
10-year.
yeah, usually they're 10 years. I'd have to look and see it, look at the schedule for it, but I think this is our second year
I
paying
guess the
them.
care center is coming. I mean, that facility's been here 30 years. I mean, I just didn't know why we had that. listed
Just
in there.
because I think it's just because it's still in the TIF
Okay.
realm. It still comes up. I still have to do reporting on it every year, even though we're not paying it out anymore.
Okay.
Well, and it's possible they did something when they added the assisted living. I don't know,
suppose, yeah,
so.
Could have.
that's been more recent.
Motion to approve it?
Yeah, is there a motion to approve the report?
So
Second.
Motion made by Alan, second by Rich to approve as submitted. Any further questions?
Just one, find out if we've got a long-term contract with them or if they're done at the end of this year. Where we stand with them on that.
Okay.
I thought they were done.
Well, at one time I thought we had a 3-year and I didn't know if we were
Oh, okay.
in the middle or where we were at, so I'm curious.
Find out and I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor of accepting the report as submitted signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. 7.3, discussion and possible action on draft snow removal policy.
I want to emphasize the word draft. Want to have something here for discussion, but it's far from a finalized version. I have yet to even discuss this with Greg and Chief Hoyt, but wanted to have something provided for you to discuss. Did everybody get one over there? Okay.
Colin?
There was a copy of Maquoketa's policy provided last meeting, and I thought a lot of the elements were good, so I tried to translate a lot of that. Obviously taking our local information and changing things where I thought it was necessary. So, trying to hit just, I guess, the main points, but Section 3 kind of outlines the general responsibilities for monitoring road conditions. Section 5, again, this is following current ordinance on our snow emergency routes. So those routes defined in the ordinance and then listed here, those are automatically prohibited from parking any time that we get 2 or more inches of snow. It doesn't require any action by anybody just because they're the main thoroughfares, and so there's no street parking when it hits 2 inches, so that's just reiterated there. The next section is the snow emergency, which prohibits street parking everywhere within the city. And that's a declaration made by, again, this is following ordinance, but by the mayor, myself, or the street superintendent. There's no official guideline or no official rule on when that's called, but I put in here a guideline of roughly a prediction or forecast of 8 or more inches as a guideline. Again, we try to call those in advance because when we're asking people to not park, they need a notice to move their car. So as in a case with this year, we called one where we didn't get near the amount expected, but that's kind of what we have to go after if we're gonna expect people to be out of the parking spot. Um,
Can I just ask
Yeah.
a question about that portion of it? You got it, that it can be declared by the mayor, city administrator, and street superintendent. Is there a specific order? 'Cause could all three of you sit back and think the other one's calling it? Is there an order that says mayor first, then administrator, then street? Is it,
I think the idea that any one of us could, and I think the idea behind that is that in case one or more of us are not here, if I'm on vacation or whatever, Greg still has the authority to do that without consulting me, but in most practical cases, at least the prior mayor has not ever indicated to me a concern to call one, but Greg, when he feels one's necessary, he'll consult with me, and then we'll both come to an agreement before we declare one. That's just what's happened since I've been here.
okay, so if you're gone, he can't consult with you, then does he need to consult with the mayor and then?
Not as the ordinance is written right now.
Right, so I'm just trying to walk through it because I could see if one person thinks, well, like, since the mayor didn't do it prior, that leaves just two of you, and one thinks the other one did it, and nobody did it. Just kind of a semblance of, administrator first, then street, or vice versa, whatever, so that you've got an order, and if Greg's gone, then it falls to you, or if you're number one, then it falls to Greg. However,
If
but,
we were to put an order in place, I guess I would put street superintendent first, just because they're the ones plowing the streets and out and about, monitoring them. So if they're gonna be that first line, I think that's where, and then if for some reason they're gone, it should fall to me. And obviously if I'm gone, I don't know, it would just cut me out of the middle, but.
well, I just think we ought to have some order to it, and then the process for contacting media and so forth, where we're going, if it's Channel 9, Channel 2, WMT, so it's in the policy, so if there's ever any changeover,
Yeah.
we've got it down in black and white.
We can expand, it does mention, obviously, that local media outlets need to be contacted, but we can expand that and
Yep.
define, even the contact information for those.
Put the phone numbers in.
Yeah, make it easy.
Just throwing this out there, as far as the three individuals involved, I don't know if it's still done this way. I know years ago the schools, before they would call it, like superintendent, maybe the transportation director, they'd go out and kind of collectively, more than one head involved. I don't know if that's something we'd want to look at. The other thing is, lately, I couldn't tell you the last time we got 8 inches of snow. That's a whole lot of snow. Even, I was thinking of bumping it down to 6. Even 6 inches of snow once it starts getting,
I agree.
I wouldn't be opposed to bumping that down to 6 inches.
Well, and even 2 inches. Was it Sunday that did snow and the trucks were all over everywhere?
Well, that,
This is just to remove, this is based, it doesn't mean we're not gonna go out and plow, it just
Right.
means that it prohibits the street parking. And that's kind of the reason of the high number is, I'm fine with 6. Anytime we declare snow emergency, it makes the street department's job a lot easier. So they would, if they were to err, I think they would err on the side of calling it, because it makes it easier to plow. But obviously, the public does not like to move their cars off the street, and so that's where, I'm fine with 6 inches.
Well, the way
I
it
just wanna make
reads,
sure you're
that we're
aware
not
that
gonna
there's a lot
declare
of
it.
people upset when they have to move their car.
But then when you go around with the cars, then that snow sits there and freezes. And
Absolutely.
this reads that we're not going to declare it unless there's 8 inches, which is, I think it should be called before then.
well, unless you put wording in there that at
This is just
least, yeah.
A general guideline.
At least 8, it could be called for less than that, because if we get a wet, heavy snow of 4 inches, that can be just as bad as an 8-inch
Or
snow.
we get a dry snow with the wind, it could turn into drifts big enough that you couldn't get through.
So, I think if it's expected of at least 8 or something, you know, we can always call a snow emergency at any point in time. Or put it in there at the discretion of
I think,
the individuals.
I think this reads that way. That it's still left to the complete discretion of the individual. There's no amount required to call it. But
But it's a general guideline.
Yeah,
for
it's
the
just, yeah,
agencies.
so,
Yeah,
yep.
I'll work on the wording. And yeah, I'll talk with Greg again. Maybe he feels it needs to be lower than 8 anyway. I don't. Okay. In 7, I just tried to outline the priorities for snow removal in general. I know Greg has more specific, he might have more specific priorities, so I can update those if needed, but generally we try to hit the emergency services and the hospital, and then from there we just go to the snow routes, which again are listed above. They're the main roads.
I think the high school hill should be specifically mentioned.
Specifically mentioned in 7, it is listed
Yes,
as,
please.
Sadie Street is a snow route, which I think is the entirety of that high school hill. I thought about listing it, that was included in the Macokota one was the school accesses, but I think all school access is included within the snow emergency, so it seemed redundant. But I can add it in.
We got it at Sadie Street and,
Old Dubuque, Sadie Street, and then First Street gets you to the elementary.
Okay,
Again, I don't know if this is necessarily important, but it was a subject in the other policy that we were looking at, and that just listing where the snow is to be dumped, and primarily we dump it down by the baseball field. There may be other sites, but it's the primary one. Number 9 kind of gets into the process, and I tried to describe what we currently do, or a slight modification of what we currently do. Basically, it push the snow to the outer edge of the street, and that includes the downtown district. What we've tried a couple times and we haven't done it consistently. I think maybe should be the start. I know that's kind of where this all started, was the downtown district. Once that's plowed to the edge, we need to, as soon as possible, clean that to each end of the block, so that it's taking maybe one parking spot to sit there, but the curb should be cleared until we can remove that pile from the downtown. I know we talked about putting it to the center, and other communities do that. My understanding is that will create issues at intersections. Once that's in the middle of the street, your turn lane's removed. So if you're going down Main Street and you want to turn down 4th Street to City Hall, that is now Wind Road, and you've got a 2-foot section of snow sitting there, and you can't turn until that's removed. The most efficient way that I'm aware of to remove that is with a big snow blower. To put it into the back of a truck. We don't have one. To move that with a end loader is going to take a lot of time. So you can't just leave that windrow in the middle of the street during the day. That's something maybe we can look at going forward, but I don't think we're prepared to flip that switch right now. So anyway, we put it to the outside, but to make sure that the majority of the parking and the curb is not packed with snow, we can then push that to the ends of the blocks and maybe take up 1 or 2 parking spots per block with that pile of snow. The only issue briefly discussed this was, we don't wanna end up blocking storm drains so that as it melts, the water can't get there. That's the concern, but, there's not, a whole lot of storm drains downtown. They're mostly on the south side, so, or not south side, west side. So, I guess that's my approach right now, and I'm open to your thoughts on that. 10, I don't know if those are reasonable limits, but talking about the speed, I mean, we have no way to know exactly what they're driving unless we put a device on there to tell us. But to me, I set a maximum speed 5 miles below the highest speed limit in town, and then for the downtown district at 15 miles per hour, which is again 5 miles below the speed limit. I don't know if that's still too fast or what, but
We can always change.
a starting point to try to make sure that we're not pushing that snow too hard.
I guess with the exception of like 3rd Street and the major interchanges in and out of town, I don't know why 15 couldn't be residential downtown, everything. I mean,
I agree.
because otherwise it starts throwing it pretty far.
Well, what is let's say, the speed limit going down First Street?
I don't know off the top of my head, but
25.
25? So all residential should not exceed 25.
yeah, I mean,
And-
I
and
guess it should say.
Cause I know,
Yeah,
I
I
know
guess it should
coming
say,
in
you know,
third is
this-
35, but
Yeah,
they should not exceed the
my
speed
intention,
limit
my
by any
intention
means.
was that, and obviously the speed limit posted would rule over this. So I mean, obviously they shouldn't be going faster than the speed limit anywhere.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
the way I've seen them drive, I think they do exceed
Oh,
it.
yeah,
so
I would agree.
I mean, I think that's a good point. We could put 15 even at just
I think all residential
all
ought to be
residential
15.
streets as well.
Because isn't Third Street the only one that's 35, that's a residential?
As far as
Yeah,
I know. So I mean, we could even just put the. I don't know. You could almost just put the 30 miles on the 4.
I'd like to see just
Scott
30 miles an hour
3rd
on
Street
the 4
only.
lane, and everything else be 15, because whether it be downtown or residential, they don't need to be going faster than 15 miles
What
an
was
hour.
your first speed, Jeff?
Still gonna be tough to regulate.
15 in the downtown, what did you say?
30 on the 4 lane, everywhere else 15. I mean, if they're going downtown or residential, they don't, to do a good job, they don't need to be going faster than, I
Right.
don't feel like.
cause I know that they've at least at times thrown snow 15 feet into my driveway after I'm out there shoveling it, and that's because they're going too fast.
As far as number 9 goes, as it reads right now, isn't it, that there's no changes from what we're currently doing, it sounds
Right.
like.
The only slight modification would be that right now there's not necessarily the emphasis on moving it to the ends of the block. They push it to the edge, and it's just along the curb most times. There's been a few times where they do move it, but that hasn't been a consistent practice.
Yeah. But
So if I understand right from the things brought up, there's that issue of even if you can park, it's difficult to get over the curb onto the sidewalk because of the pile of snow there. And so that's something that I would hope this addresses.
Yeah, if they could push it to one end, take up 2 or 3 parking spots, pile it, you know, maybe they could come in with the unloader and pile it, so they're only taking up a few spots
Yeah.
on each block.
Could we ask somebody that was here when they plowed it to the center how they did the intersections? I
Well-
guess I was here, but I don't remember.
Well,
So
you were, did you do it that way?
When they were having it hired done, they would come in at midnight and they would shove it all to the center then. And then they would push it from the side streets all into one. And then they would come in with their end loaders and their dump trucks, and they would fill it and haul it. But it was right in the center,
but not initially.
not
Initially.
initially, no.
It was at night. Yeah,
But
and that could happen. I mean, that could still
if
happen.
it's an overnight snow though, is there a reason we couldn't push it just to the middle and there's not, I mean, if it's finishing up at midnight, or we can push it to the middle and then move it at that point, instead of making the extra step to push it to the outside.
That would be provided that somebody would come in and pick it up in the night.
Right. See what.
Yeah, that's the
And-
thing,
unless-
they've gotta get the whole city before they can come back and clean up
Yeah.
the downtown.
The only other way we could do that is if we hired seasonal help that could come in and do it after hours or something of that nature. Otherwise, those guys could be working 12 hours, 18-hour shifts.
We're never gonna see Mother Nature cooperate completely anyway.
So we either get some seasonal help or hire it done. I know other towns that will take it, push it, pile it, and then come back and get it maybe the next day or later on.
Yeah.
And that seems to work for them.
Try it this way and see what happens.
Is it something we could get an agreement with? You say Monticello has a big snow blower. I mean, we've done sharing of equipment with other cities in the past, if that came up.
I think they go and rent that from,
Oh, do that?
It
Yeah.
doesn't-
Where do they get that
That's from the airport.
is it from?
I believe that the airport is the proprietor of that piece of equipment. I'm not saying the city hasn't
Yeah.
funded it in some sort to have access to it. But it was my understanding that,
And if they're
I mean, we
needing
could
it,
look
it'd
at
be kind
renting
of
one or
awkward.
something, but,
If they're needing it too, it'd be kind of awkward for us to get it. It might-
yeah, we're gonna have snow at
Yeah.
the same
I
time.
think,
Yeah.
I think Jacob's right in one thing, pushing it down at the end of the block, at least to start. We won't have to worry about fighting through snowbanks to get to places that we like to visit, you know.
It'll just cut into a couple parking spots
Yeah.
here and there.
Yeah, I think.
well, again, this is,
The only downside potentially to that is when they're going in with the unloader to pick up those piles, they may end up destroying those nodes even more than they already are.
Yeah, we will have to watch that, and the other thing is, most of the,
So we would,
we'll have to watch, make sure that we keep some of our handicap accessible parking open, cause usually we're at the end of
Crosswalks
the
and-
block.
Yep.
would we have to push it all the way down to the end and just pick a parking spot or some place along the street so people can still get around on both sides? I mean,
Like the corner parking spot next to the nodes, instead of actually going to the nodes.
yeah.
Well, yeah, well, you know, it depends, cause depending on where they're at, they could be tearing up the sidewalk or right there too. I mean, it's gonna be a unfortunate situation with that, landscaping and everything down there, that something might get tore up.
And to go back to Monticello with that windrow, they don't have the notes. So their street is,
they can plow from,
End to end,
yep.
yeah,
yep.
And, you know, the nodes are obviously a challenge for snow removal, but in the downtown assessment, that team spoke very highly of those nodes. This is gonna be, this will remain a sensitive subject matter
Just have to work around it.
for the rest of this winter season. I could also see, you know, if we're going to test this to see how it's gonna work. The snow pile will not be welcomed in front of the business that it's piled in front of. I understand we, you know, we're limited with what we can do. One thing that I would like to see is what is the time it takes to move that snow to the center of the street and haul it out? Before I would, if I was making a decision, before I would finalize that decision, I want some time, cost figures in front of me, so I can make an educated decision and not just based on someone's personal preference.
Wouldn't hurt to experiment and do it once and see what happens.
Yeah.
And, you know, then, there again, you know, we have to answer to the residents. And when we tell them, you know, that snow removal on an average year could cost us $40,000, would you embrace that check?
Well, it's something we could experiment with this year on a light snow year. I mean, if we get any amount of snow that we can look into.
So one thing that's difficult is the timing of the storm. I mean, if we got a late evening storm, so that, you know, we were out plowing at midnight and nobody was out, you know, that would be an ideal situation to try to get it to the middle, not even mess with pushing it to the end and then get it cleaned up right away. But obviously, if that storm is right in the heart of the day, everybody's out and about. I don't, again, with our current equipment, it'd be one thing with a snow blower, but if you're gonna push it to the middle, even if it's there for 15 minutes, and it'll be there a lot longer than that, you're gonna have people trying to turn that just don't have a way to do it. I mean, they're gonna have to,
Well, there may be certain streets that gets blocked and then certain streets we have to have open, so if we did every other street, maybe block one, have the other one open. Yeah, it's kind of an inconvenience, you're gonna have to maybe make a loop, but
yeah.
It's doable.
it is a doable thing, and there's no perfect answer to this, but it's gonna be one of those things that hopefully everybody understands and accepts.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you see any other things that stand out, I know this is the first time you had the chance to review it, so just let me know. I'm still gonna meet with, street superintendent, the, police chief to go over this and make sure there's not anything I'm missing or things that need modified, but. Okay.
Any public input on the discussion of 7.3?
Leanna Boone. I just wanted to say that I did reach out to the streets department in Monticello. I mean, I realize they do have a snow blower, but he said he's more than willing to talk with anyone that wants to ask him what they do, how they do it, go over there and just see someday after snow, just to see what they do there.
Thanks.
Jackie Schneider. As you guys are considering what you're gonna do with snow, you may wanna consider just blocking views at blind intersections. That might be something to consider, so we don't put the city in a liability situation from blocking people as they're driving around. Just might add that. Thank you.
Any further discussion on behalf of the council? Well, it is in a rough draft, so I would expect Jake to take it back, continue to work with this. Would the council have a timeline they would like to see it back on the agenda?
Well,
2 weeks?
2
I
weeks.
would think the next meeting, we ought to have maybe an updated,
Yeah.
or
Otherwise, it'll be
Some-
summer, and then it won't matter.
What's the possibility of taking the snow rather than pushing it down in the corner? You need to push it someplace, but take it around and put it on the side street back about 2 or 3 parking spots, so it's out of the way completely. I know it's a little more work for the snow removal crew, but we
well,
wouldn't have to be worrying about the main street at all.
yeah, and I think that would work, but I don't know how that's gonna work with those nodes, because they're gonna come down and then have to go out and swing back around. So I don't know how, you know, if they're gonna do that, they might as well just take the unloader right down and pick it up as they go. Cause I was thinking, you know, thinking about, yeah, if we could take it up Ford Street, either direction,
And I guess I should add that, I mean, pushing it to the end of the block only works if the parking's clear. So they would hopefully be able to do that, most of them at night, or if there is a snow emergency declared. But on some snows where no snow emergency and it's middle of the day, they won't be able to do that until that parking area is cleared. So,
it'll be tricky.
So you will either have this on the agenda at our next meeting or provide a report through your city administrator's report.
Okay, sounds good.
Seven point four, insurance claim for damaged UTV filed by Bob Simonson.
Good evening. My name is Bob Simonson, 302 East Plum Street. I guess my question to the council, my initial question would be to find out if you need a background into this claim and why it came to the city. Or if you're aware of everything, I'll let you make that decision.
I'm not aware.
Okay,
Bob, as far as I know, no reports have been provided
okay,
to any of the council.
all right.
Well, Bob, I'll just say, Bob contacted me about this in December. I contacted Jacob. 2 months later, that's why we're here.
Okay.
Back on August 26th last year, my neighbor, 2 houses east of me, has his dad mow his lawn for him. The dad's name being Larry Maloney. He lives in a small white house 4 houses east of me. He's a senior citizen. He rides this lawnmower around. He cannot push a lawnmower from what I was told. I don't know that for a fact. He broke down at the bottom of the hill, down at the north end of his son's property. I was outside, working outside, and I hollered at him. I said, "Are you broken down?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, hang on, I'll be right over." Knowing that he's got some medical issues, or being informed he had some medical issues, I took my four-wheeler over there and hooked up a tow cable and asked him where he wanted it towed out of. I was thinking maybe just wanted to, I didn't know if he was using his son's lawnmower or what. And he says, "Can I get it taken to my house?" And I said, "Yeah, where do you live?" But at the time I didn't know where he lived. He says, "That white house right over there." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Do you want to go up through your son's house or what?" "Yeah." So we went up straight south, up through his son's driveway, out onto Plum Street, down 3 houses, up into his drive, and pulled it up in there. I kind of pointed to where he wanted it, and he pointed right there, and he says this way the guy from Monticello could come pick it up. The machine wouldn't run, wouldn't move at all, so that's why he needed towed out of there. I got off my four-wheeler, disconnected the tow cable, and got back on it, and Mr. Maloney came up and was talking to me for 2 minutes. And all of a sudden, a loud bang, and a big limb, about 3 or 4 feet long, maybe 5 or 6 inches in diameter, fell out of the tree right above me, fell on the deck of the four-wheeler, and put a hole in it, and a big crack going across the thing. Missed us by inches. And so after I kind of got my wits about me a little bit, it scared him bad too. He had to kind of go over and sit down. And he made the comment that he said that this is zoned as an alley, or street or alley, I'm not sure, I think it's an alley. And I said, "Oh, it is." And he says, "Yeah," he says, "that tree is on here." And he says, "Go over to that alley right over there, across the street, across Plum Street, and just follow the lines up." And he said, "You'll see where this is." He said, "It's not my property, it's the city's." So I went home, I took a few pictures of what I had, went home, and not for criminality or anything like this, but I called the police department merely to have it documented. Date, time, photographs, whatever, and a report. So there is a police report on it. I believe Jacob has a copy of that. And I talked to the city within a couple days about this, and I says, "Is this something that normally the city should be responsible for?" He didn't know, but he says, "I've got to have you fill out a report to the insurance company." And he said, "But I don't know where that's at, it'll take me a couple days to find it." So, okay, no problem. I had gone to the city hall. I said, "No problem, give me a call or send me an email, or send it to me in an email," and I got that copy. I filled it out. He should have that copy. He informed me at that time On September 16th was when it was completed and, or completed within a couple days of getting it, and given back to the city. And he informed me that it would be turned over to the insurance company at that time. I'm not sure what your deductible is, but it's only a $230 bill, $231.11 to be precise. And so I didn't know if that would even be involved in the insurance company or not. But I thought, do what you want, do what you have to, that's fine. Nothing. Since that time, I've been into City Hall twice. I've called into City Hall twice. I don't get a call back, I don't get anything back, which is why I went to Councilman Crum. And I said, seems like it's stalled, it's not going anywhere. Now, it's my understanding about 5, 6 weeks ago, when I
December.
talked to you,
Was at least December.
okay, it was not on the agenda, but Rich asked Jacob about it and said it's taken too long to get it taken care of. Get it taken care of now. Almost 2 months later, zero. Nothing's going on. I guess I want to know where I'm at.
I've provided everything that, to the insurance. I followed up after our last meeting, and I have not gotten a response from EMC. But, I mean, I think it is a claim that we file with the insurance. I don't think it's a claim that we just pay out. That doesn't make any sense. It's the insurance, I mean, it's on them to make a decision. I can't speak to why they haven't provided anything. Now, again, I don't think this is my judgment call, but in the initial discussion we had with them was, I'm not 100% sure that the tree is on city property in the first place. That's not my call, that's for them to investigate the claim. But I haven't heard anything from them. I followed up with them, still haven't heard anything, and that's where things are at. If I had an update, I would have followed up, but
What insurance company?
EMC Insurance.
Well,
Is that through you, ma'am?
it's very fortunate Jackie's here to, Jackie?
We're fortunate, right?
Yeah. But is this something, would you mind standing up and?
No, no problem.
Is this something you can help us out with?
Absolutely.
Investigate, find out when this claim was turned in and where it stands?
Absolutely.
Because the other part of this is, if this tree is on city property and it's dropping branches, we need to know if this tree is safe or if we should be bringing it down. Because if it's in that bad a shape, it could, a kid walking by then drop on it. Or cat or dogs.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, this is 6 months later and nothing's been done. So we gotta get this taken care of.
Can I ask what your deductible would be?
I'd have to have that policy in front of me. I don't know off the top of my head.
I guess I would
if they
be
have a-
surprised that it'd be less than $1,000 or even $500. But $231.11 is not something you probably need to take to the insurance company.
But,
Well, and Bob, I think we can all be in agreement on that. The caveat to it though is, whose tree?
And a lot of our policies, again, I don't know if 100%, but I guess I feel like I would have looked at this when we first had the incident brought to my attention. I'm pretty sure our policy actually has 0 deductible, and that's part of that decision.
That's what I'm thinking too, is there is probably a 0 deductible. There are some commercial policies that have a $1,000 deductible just to help reduce the cost of the premiums, but I can't speak, without looking at the policy to where the city's at on that. I think you have a good thinking around it, whose tree is it? So you have to check the zoning thing. With claims, it calls into question of, was the tree dropping limbs? Are people aware that it's a hazardous tree? Just like if it's a tree in your yard and all of a sudden wind comes through and it makes it weak and it just falls a branch onto your neighbor's fence, If there's really no evidence that that tree is being a hazard at that moment, there was really no responsibility to remove it if it's not giving you signs that it's in trouble. So that's the value of doing an investigation and having a claim person come out and take a look at the tree and going through the process, so.
So I'm sure
But-
you can understand Bob's frustration because it is 6, 8
Absolutely.
months. So
Are there,
I'm just trying to get an understanding as to if we've submitted the paperwork for a claim, you know, we're at a standstill until the insurance company comes back with
Correct.
something. So without putting you on the spot, I'm gonna kinda do it.
Totally.
Where's the holdup? Who dropped the ball?
Well,
I mean, does it come across your desk or someone else's desk?
So the way our office is formatted is Patty is our claims agent. She touches every claim that comes through. She also sends quarterly updates to Jacob on open claims and where we're, you know, if there's anything that he needs to be aware of. Because when we met with him, there were a lot of claims that just got submitted that he wasn't aware of. So we do provide that. This Simonson claim, with all due respect, isn't ringing a bell to me. So as I'm sitting there, I'm texting Patty, who's the claims agent. And she's like, it's not ringing a bell to me too, but I'm happy to investigate it. And she is a bulldog on that. Like if she knows something's hung up, she'll be on it like that. So trust in that we will respond on that in the morning. But I can't state where it is
don't we
today.
have markers in the alleyways showing the boundaries?
I got it on Beacon right now. So I mean, it looks like, is it the tree that's,
It's in the
East.
corner.
is this where we're talking?
Why
That's
they're
the
looking,
owner's house?
who would be,
Is this the
who
tree
would
you're
be
talking
the
about?
investigative side? Is it something the city
Your
needs to
house
try to
is
identify? Or will your team,
There.
Well, it's the
Take the
EMC.
full
It'd
ball.
be through
That's his
claims.
house?
So claims
Yes.
would assign an adjuster,
But-
and that adjuster would come out and
but
investigate.
would they be investigating
It's a big tree.
whose tree that is, or are they just looking at the,
They will definitely look at whose tree that is. So
okay,
they should be in communication with the city. What are the zone maps? Whose tree is it? Whose responsibility is it?
yeah, see, my whole thing in this is, if the claim was filed in September, by December, usually an adjuster has made contact and done something, so, yeah, why is there a big holdup on this?
It's really unusual, I don't know
Do
why.
most claims get filed through you, or do they go straight to EMC?
If we get a claim of a resident filing a claim, we'll inform Jacob, because we're just not gonna turn a phantom claim on the city's policy. We're gonna inform Jacob, let the process work its way through. Ask him, hey, should we be turning this in, what's the council wanna do? So, we're just not gonna turn in a phantom claim for a
So
resident.
the
I
question,
submitted
Yeah.
I submitted it directly to EMC.
that's what I was gonna
And,
ask.
and
is-
this is just based on my memory, when I first heard about it, I think we reached out to Jackie's office just informally, like, hey, we have this small dollar claim, honestly thinking the same thing that Bob was, is this even big enough to file? And then that's when it was zero deductible, why, you know, it definitely should be submitted, and that's what we did.
So, have we done any investigation on our own about if we own this tree or not?
Ron had a
So
question.
again, with it being submitted, the limit of my investigation was trying to get information to provide to EMC. I sent them a screenshot of Beacon, and that is not, I mean, not
That's not-
100% accurate.
Right,
Ron has a
Along
point
with,
there. Excuse me for interrupting, but these markers that I was talking about, we could go out there and find them and line that up and know where that tree's at. It'd be that quick.
I think good thing you're gonna run into is maybe where.
if there are property
It-
pins, you could
they're
potentially look
there.
for those, but
I'm
They're
guessing
not
they're
always
not there
there.
because the house
Yeah.
east of it is very old.
it sounds like our insurance company's gonna do that. That's
exactly.
part of the investigation
Yeah.
process.
well, but see, my thing of this, portion of this, in addition to that is, we need to know, and we should have been investigating, because if that is a bad tree, like I said, and it needs to come down, we should have been investigating that 6 months ago, to find out if that needed to come down. Because now we know it's dropping branches, if it is our tree, and in that time frame something would have happened, we could have had more problems.
The knowledge, again, the knowledge that I had was, it indicated likely wasn't, but I guess that's kind of where,
Well, I mean, yeah, if you look at Beacon, you can, shadows, you can go either way. We may have to have it surveyed.
Has that alley been abandoned?
No,
Has it not been?
I don't believe it has.
Mr. Maloney said it was still owned by the city, that it was offered to him, but he wasn't gonna buy it.
That alley.
Yeah, I believe it's still I mean, it's
still
technically,
platted
it's still
as-
an alley, it's not,
When you
it's
run
not paved
to,
or anything.
is the base of the tree on the private property, but then it hangs over. It looks like the bulk of the tree is on the private property, but some of it hangs over the alley.
It's hard to say. It could even be 50/50. It's hard to say. So,
So what's the zoning rules on that in city documents? Like at what percentage is it cities and at what percentage is it?
There's no hard and fast rule on that.
yeah,
I mean, my past experience, I've only ran into a few issues where there's trees that, are very close to property lines to private property, and usually the rule is where the base is where the tree is. But that's nothing written, that's just what I've seen in past practice.
I know of an individual, the tree was on their property line, their car was parked on the street, the limb fell down the street, damaged the car, but the claim was handled by the individual's car insurance policy. That's how it was handled.
And that's normal.
yeah. So if
I
you
think-
if you could do some investigating for us to find out where the claim stands, what's going on,
Yep.
let Jacob know so he can let us know and get a hold of Bob and let him know where it stands and,
Jackie, will you please expedite the process?
Absolutely.
yeah.
I
And,
text Patty while I was sitting here, and she's like, "I'll work on it in the morning." So I just needed more details, and the city calls, the school calls, are like, "Hey, hypothetically." So when I talked to Jacob, I would have put notes in there, or Patty would have. So we'll go back and look at that, and she'll get on it for you. Absolutely. Yeah,
appreciate
I think
it.
that's the
We
best
can-
next step.
We can
is
touch
if
base
find
in the
claims
morning and
from
make sure you've got all the details, and then
Be
we can go
great.
from there.
Yeah, if you have that form, then we can go ahead and make sure they have everything. Yep, be happy to.
Bob, would you
Thank
be
you.
a little,
Hey, you're welcome.
just patient with us a little longer?
No problem.
We'll get to the bottom here sooner or later.
It's got some attention now.
Another one, so.
All right, thanks, Bob. Thanks, Jackie.
Yeah, you're welcome.
As far as a council, are you comfortable with the direction it appears that we're gonna be going with this?
Well, I don't know that we got much other choice.
We don't, no, we don't.
I think if
Right.
the claim's been filed, the best route is just to get it taken care of
Yes,
and closed, so we'll help you with that.
thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
I can't believe the public would have any opinion or discussion on this, but I'll stay consistent and offer it up. We'll wait to hear from you, Jackie. Thank you.
Do you want us to communicate directly with Jacob?
Please do.
And then he can send out emails to all of us
Yeah.
with the
That would be
update.
good.
Jacob, you would keep Bob abreast on the action that is being
Yes.
undertaken. I'm sure he would appreciate that as well. Thank you. 7.5, resolution setting the date for public hearing on the proposed property tax levy for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
This is a new requirement, based on new legislation, to set an additional public hearing before the public hearing for the budget itself. It's just to establish that, maximum levy amount. Again, the public hearing would be at our next regular meeting, the 24th. And the notice to the public, including all the vital information, was included in the email to you. That'll be published this Thursday, notifying the public of the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to set the public hearing for February 24th, the year 2020 at 6 PM.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any public opinion? Motion by Rich, second by Alan to set the public hearing for February 24th, 2020, 6 PM. This is a roll vote.
Smith,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Capron,
Yes.
Crump.
Yes.
7.6, review and approval of the bills.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Galen to approve the bills. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. 8.0, city administrators report.
Last meeting, we talked about vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I was later in getting that posted online than I wanted to, but also just thinking about it further, we had discussed filling that at this meeting, and I just felt like we weren't in a rush, and I wanted to make sure that there was enough time to let people know that there was a vacancy and get interest. So I went ahead and pushed that one more meeting and extended the deadline to submit a letter of interest to February 19th, which is a Wednesday, so I can include that information in the packet for the 24th meeting.
Has there been any interest?
I have not received any interest thus far. We're continuing to work on the budget. Obviously, we just set a public hearing. Once we get past that, it'll be on to the public hearing for the budget itself, which we're scheduled to have that public hearing and then approve it the last meeting in March. The forms are due to the state last day in March, so that'll give us roughly that last week to get them sent in. We concluded the first round of interviews for the open wastewater position today, planning a second round, but hope to have a candidate recommended for your approval by our next meeting. We held our second round of collective bargaining with the police union today. I think we made some progress, but we weren't quite able to close the deal yet. Again, we'll continue to work that as quickly as we can. We have scheduled two public information meetings on the proposed fire station and police station projects. The first meeting will be this week, Thursday, February 13th at 7 p.m. The second meeting will be Wednesday, February 26th at 6 p.m. They'll both be held at the library. We've got a poster out online that will be in the newspaper but not advertised. I just didn't get it in on the advertising deadline, so it'll be included in the public notices. And I'll continue, it'll be on the library's new sign. Going to try to get that information out as best we can so that people have the opportunity to come and learn about those projects prior to the special election scheduled for March 3rd.
Check with the bank and see if they'll put it on their electronic sign also.
Okay.
Probably. Work on that.
Jake, you'll give us some love on that, won't you? Thanks, buddy. You mentioned about filling the position on the wastewater.
Yes.
We will be having a vacancy of temporary nature on the water.
Yes.
That should get some urgency, shouldn't it? Or how you comment on that?
It does need some urgency. It's, I've got to work on getting that posting out still.
I'll remind that it is, sure is nice to have a full staff of employees to train a new employee. Any questions for Jacob on the report?
Just repeat those real quick. Thursday, well, it's just Thursday, February 13th at 6 p.m.
7 p.m.
At 7.
7 p.m.
p.m.
And
Sorry.
we will be getting notifications on emails for that also, the meeting.
So it's just information.
Those are not council meetings. They're just, I mean,
We can be there, we're not required, or what's that?
well, I mean, yes, you can be there. The issue is if we get a quorum, and we are discussing city business, and so then it becomes a public meeting, and we,
Maybe I'll just take a vacation then.
I guess, I think it's probably best that if you have questions about that, that we meet and we can go over those.
Okay, that's good.
Um,
Just wanted that clarified. You guys are wearing me out.
Well, since they're gonna have some type of presentation, I'm going to assume. Are they gonna do a PowerPoint?
So,
How are they doing this? And is it, if they are doing a PowerPoint, could you at least send out the PowerPoint presentation to us with
Yeah.
some footnotes and whatever?
they are preparing a PowerPoint for the police side. I'm working with Chief Shada, and we're gonna try to put together a separate PowerPoint presentation on the fire station project. And yeah, once we have those done, we can send those to the council.
Well, you're cutting it kinda close on getting the fire station PowerPoint done, aren't you? With 3 days?
Run
Yeah.
fast.
That's
Okay.
that's the deadlines we're working on.
Okay.
Anything else? 9.0, Mayor and Council's reports. 9.1, Council reports on boards and commissions.
I guess I'll start. I've got two different places I'm gonna be working. I'm gonna be working with Jets. I haven't talked to them yet. I'm just kind of compiling ideas that I've got. Mostly I've worked with them for years at my shop, working on their vehicles and talking to them, so I'm aware of them quite well, so it shouldn't be a problem working into that one. The other one that we've got, I'm going to be helped considerably, and that's the senior citizens meal program that we have here in town. Everybody here that's driven by my place knows I'm farming half of Anamosa over there, and I plan on expanding my garden a little bit and growing a few extra vegetables and things that I can literally donate to that to help them with their food and things. So that's one of the things I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to be meeting that with them once I kind of slow down a little bit and get through the budgets and everything, and I have time, and just sit down with them and see if there's anything else they need or what they're thinking. So that's where I'm at with that right now.
Anybody else reports?
Not necessarily a report, but I can see that there was a break-in at the LCC in the last few days. If that happened, well, maybe this isn't the place for it, but just Parks and Rec.
Sunday.
Was Sunday?
Okay. 10.0, public with business with the council on items not on the agenda.
I have an appointment at 8 o'clock, so I'm gonna excuse myself. Do you guys have any more questions for me?
Think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jackie.
You bet.
Jackie, I have a question.
Yes. 11.0, now I'm not seeing a closed session, are you,
It's
Yeah,
part of the
11.1.
motion.
okay, alright, I didn't see it listed there.
Yep.
Uh,
I'll make a motion to enter into closed session for Iowa State Code Section 21.5I. You wanna read the rest? Or is that good enough?
That's good.
Okay,
I'm good with that.
Was there a second? I did
I'll
not.
second.
Okay. Motion by Rich, second by Kay, to enter into closed session.
Taking a roll vote.
so vote.
Crump,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Capron.
Yes.